Hello, and welcome back to the Sleep Alchemist. Tonight, our story begins under the soft, knowing glow of the harvest moon. A time of quiet work, whispered secrets, and long shadows in the countryside. Before we begin our journey, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely find a sense of peace here. And in the comments, I would love to know where in the world you are listening from tonight. It's always a quiet joy to see our community of listeners gathering from all corners of the globe. Now, dim the lights. Find your comfortable space and let your breath slow to the rhythm of the night. Our story begins in the warmth of a stable. My world is small, and it is measured by the rising and setting of the sun. I wake not to a bell from a distant church tower, but to the first, faint crowing of the rooster from the neighboring farm. The sound travels across the damp morning fields, a lonely call that slices through the silence. I am 17, and this stable, this is my kingdom. The air in the hayloft where I sleep is always the same. It is a sweet, earthy perfume of dried clover, aging wood, and the dust motes that dance like tiny fairies in the single, sharp beam of light from the small, high window. I pull the rough wool blanket from my face. It is heavy and carries the familiar scent of horse and earth, the scent of my life, woven into every thread. I do not rush the morning. The morning is a slow, quiet ritual, a promise that the world, for now, is in its proper order. I slide down the sturdy wooden ladder, my bare feet landing softly on the packed dirt floor below. The great, warm bodies of the horses shift in their stalls as I descend. A soft snort from Titan, the master's warhorse, his massive chest a deep rumbling that I can feel through the soles of my feet. A gentle swish of a tail from Willow, the lady's mare, her coat the color of spun moonlight. They know me. They know the rhythm of my breath, the sound of my footsteps. They are my silent companions. My first task is always for them. I fetch the oats. The sound of the metal scoop digging into the grain bin is a dry, satisfying rustle, the first true sound of the working day. I pour the oats into their troughs, and the sound of their contented rhythmic chewing is the first music I hear. I lean against the wood of Willow's stall, listening. This is peace. My life is a series of simple, repeating tasks, a tapestry woven from the same threads each day. I brush their coats until they gleam like polished stones. Titan's muscles are like rolling hills beneath the brush. He is power and strength, and when I groom him, I feel a sense of awe. The rhythmic shh, shh of the brush against his dark coat is a meditation. He snorts impatiently sometimes, but it is a familiar complaint, a part of our daily conversation. Willow is different. Her coat is like silk. She moves with a delicate grace that seems out of place in this world of rough wood and iron. She will dip her head and nuzzle my shoulder as I work, her breath a warm cloud in the cool air. She smells of apples and clean hay. Her trust is a fragile, precious thing. The horses do not have the complicated sorrows of men. Their needs are simple: food, water, a gentle hand. I understand this world. I belong in it. Later in the day, as I lead Willow back from the pasture, I see them, the lord and lady of the manor, taking a walk along the gravel path that circles the great lawn. Lord Alistair stands tall and severe, his hands clasped tightly behind his back. He surveys his lands, not with pride, but as if they were a map of his many disappointments. His polished boots never touch the grass. Lady Annalise stands beside him, but a world away. She is beautiful, yes, like a porcelain doll I once saw at a village fair, perfect and untouchable. Her dress is the color of a summer sky, and the wind plays with a loose ribbon in her hair. They speak, but their words are short and clipped, like stones dropped into a deep well, making no ripple. I watch as he gestures towards the western fields, says something I cannot hear, and then turns, walking back to the great house without a single backward glance. I see her stand there for a moment longer. She walks to a stone bench beside a statue of a lion. She reaches out and traces the outline of its stone mane with a single gloved finger. Her gaze is lost somewhere over the lake, and in her eyes I see a loneliness so profound it makes my own heart ache. It is then that I first truly understand that a person can be surrounded by everything and yet have nothing at all. The evening comes as it always does, a slow masterpiece painted across the sky in shades of bruised purple, deep orange, and fading gold. A storm is coming. I can feel it in the air, a restless, electric energy that makes the horses shift and snort in their stalls. The wind begins to whisper, then to moan through the cracks in the wooden walls of the stable. I double-check the latches on the heavy doors, ensuring they are secure against the coming gale. I give the horses a final, generous measure of fresh hay, their scent filling the air with a comforting perfume. Then I climb the ladder to my loft. The rain begins. First, a soft, hesitant patter on the thatched roof, a sound I have always found deeply comforting. It is the sound of being safe and warm while the world outside is being cleansed. The patter grows stronger, becoming a steady, rhythmic drumming. It is the perfect lullaby. I pull my wool blanket up to my chin, cocooned in my small world of hay and horse, and I close my eyes, ready for the simple, dreamless sleep of the physically tired. But tonight's sleep does not come easily. Below me, a restless movement, a sharp kick against wood. It's Titan. The warhorse has a deep fear of thunder. The wind now howls like a hungry wolf, and a distant roll of thunder confirms my thought. He kicks again, a dull, repetitive thud that echoes through the stable. I know I must go down. An agitated horse of his size can easily injure itself in the confines of a stall. I slide down the ladder again, my bare feet landing on the cool, damp earth of the floor. I grab the old lantern from its hook, my fingers fumbling with the flint and steel in the darkness. After a few tries, a spark catches. The small flame sputters to life, casting long, dancing, monstrous shadows across the stable walls. Easy now, big fellow, I murmur, my voice a low hum. I approach Titan's stall. His eyes are wide and wide in the lantern light, reflecting the tiny flame. I reach a hand through the wooden slats, stroking his powerful, trembling neck. I whisper the same nonsense words of comfort I have used since I was a boy, a soft cadence of sounds that means nothing and everything. Slowly, his shivering begins to subside. It is then that I hear it, a sound that does not belong, a sound so quiet I almost miss it beneath the drumming of the rain. The soft, almost silent creak of the large stable door, protesting against the wind. My heart stops. It pounds a sudden sharp rhythm against my ribs. Bandits? Poachers taking advantage of the storm? I quickly, carefully, snuff out the lantern flame with my fingers, plunging the stable into near total darkness. The only light now is the brief, brilliant flash of lightning from outside, which illuminates the entire stable for a split second before darkness swallows it again. I press myself into the deep shadows of an empty stall, my breath caught tight in my throat. The door opens just enough for a figure to slip through, followed by a gust of wind and rain. It is a woman. Even in the gloom, I recognize the graceful silhouette. It is Lady Annalise. My mind races, a flurry of confused questions. What is she doing here? In the middle of a storm? In the middle of the night? She carries no light, but she navigates the familiar space of the stable with a certainty that surprises me. She makes her way not to her mare, Willow, but to the darker, more secluded corner where the old tack is stored. She leans her forehead against a wooden support beam, and in the next flash of lightning, I see that her shoulders are trembling. A few moments later, which feel like an eternity, the door creaks again. A second figure enters, larger, broader. A man. I see the faint glint of a metal buckle on his belt. It is Sir Kalen, the young knight, a frequent guest at the manor. My blood runs cold. I press myself deeper into the shadows, a silent, unwilling witness to a scene I know. With every fiber of my being, I should not be seeing. They do not speak at first. He just stands there, a dark shape against the door, letting the silence between them stretch and fill the space. Then I hear her whisper. Her voice is a thread of sound, nearly lost in the drumming of the rain. You should not have come. His reply is a low rumble, full of a raw emotion that makes the hair on my arm stand up. I could not stay away. He moves toward her, his steps deliberate and heavy on the dirt floor. I expect a grand gesture, a passionate, cinematic embrace like the minstrels sing about in the great hall. But what happens is quieter, slower, and somehow infinitely more powerful. He takes off one of his heavy leather riding gloves. He does it so slowly, so deliberately, pulling each finger free as if it is a painful, difficult task. The air in the stable becomes thick, heavy with unspoken things. He reaches out a hand, not to embrace her, not to touch her face, but to gently take the end of her long, silken braid that has fallen over her shoulder. He simply holds it in his large, bare hand, as if weighing something precious, something fragile. This storm, he says, his voice still a low vibration in the dark. It is nothing. It is nothing compared to the one that lives in my own heart whenever I see you. She doesn't reply with words. She simply turns her head to face him. Another flash of lightning illuminates the stable, and I see her face clearly. It is a mask of such profound anguish and longing that it steals the breath from my lungs. I see the path of a single, perfect tear as it slides down her cheek. Before it falls, he raises his thumb and gently, so gently, wipes it away. His touch is so reverent, so tender. It is a touch that speaks of 1,000 forbidden conversations, 100 stolen glances. My heart is a frantic drum against my ribs. I feel like an intruder in a sacred space. This is not the stuff of songs and poems. This is real. This is pain. And this is a love so deep, so impossible, it hurts to watch. He takes her hand then, his rough, calloused fingers of a warrior enveloping her pale, slender ones. They just stand there, in the warm, animal-scented darkness, sharing a silence that is louder and more powerful than any thunderstorm. And in that moment, I understand. I am 16 years old, and I know little of the world. But I understand that the greatest love stories are not the ones sung in great halls with cheering crowds. They are the ones whispered in secret, in the shadows of a stable, on a dark and rainy night. I do not know how long they stand there. Time seems to stop, to fold in on itself. Eventually, with a final lingering touch of his fingers against hers, a touch that seems to say everything, he turns and slips out of the stable as silently as he arrived. She remains for a moment longer, her hand resting where his was, before she, too, disappears into the storm and the night. I wait. I wait until the sound of the rain on the roof is the only sound I can hear, a steady, calming rhythm. I slowly, silently back away from my hiding place. I climb the ladder to my loft, my limbs feeling heavy, my mind a whirlwind. I lie down on my familiar straw mattress, but the world feels different now. I pull the wool blanket up to my chin, but it is not the physical cold I'm trying to escape. I'm trying to make sense of the profound, secret sadness I have just witnessed. I think of the Lord's cold, distant eyes. I think of the lady's quiet, graceful sorrow. I think of the knight's desperate, reverent tenderness. My mind searches for a villain in the story, but finds none. There are only people, caught in a web they did not weave, a story larger than themselves. The rain on the roof is a gentle, steady rhythm now. It is a soft, percussive sound, a sound that washes the world clean. Below me I can hear the deep, slow breathing of the horses, a soft huff from Titan, a quieter sigh from Willow. They are at peace. Their world is simple. The stable is once again my sanctuary, but it has changed. It now holds a secret, a silent, powerful, and deeply human thing. And as I lie here, listening to the symphony of the night, the rain, the breathing of the horses, the creak of the old wood, I feel myself becoming a part of that silence, a keeper of that secret. My thoughts begin to slow. They drift from the faces in the lantern light to the feel of the rough wool blanket, to the sound of the rain, the steady, soft drumming on the roof, a sound that promises that even after the most turbulent of storms, a quiet morning will always come, a quiet, peaceful morning, a quiet thought, a soft sound. And so, the secret is kept, safe in the heart of the stable, and in the memory of a boy who saw something he was not meant to see. Thank you for joining me here at the Sleep Alchemist. May this story quiet your mind and bring you closer to the peace you deserve. May your night be calm and your dreams be gentle. Sleep well. And as the stable boy's secret is held safe by the falling rain, our journey continues. We leave the scent of hay and horses behind and travel across the moonlit fields to another soul, another life, bound by the rhythms of this great estate. Her world is not one of shadows and stallions, but of cool stone, sweet grass, and the quiet patience of the herd. Let us listen now to a promise she was never meant to hear. My world is painted in the quiet colors of the earth, the deep, rich brown of the soil after a rain, the pale gold of ripening wheat, the soft gray of the morning mist that hangs heavy over the fields. I wake before the sun does, not to a bell from a distant church tower, but to an internal clock, a rhythm etched into my very bones by years of the same gentle routine. The floor of my small cottage is cold stone, a shock to my bare feet that serves as a more effective alarm than any rooster's crow. I do not mind the cold. It is a reminder that I'm alive, that a new day of work has begun. My name is Clara, and my life is a song sung in a single, steady note. I am a milkmaid. I pull my simple wool shawl around my shoulders, its familiar scratchiness a strange comfort against the pre-dawn chill. Outside, the world is still asleep, bathed in the ethereal blue light that comes just before the sun crests the horizon. The air is cool and clean, carrying the scent of damp earth and the sweet perfume of the night-blooming jasmine that grows wild by my cottage door. I walk the well-worn path to the dairy, my wooden clogs making a soft, rhythmic clack-clack on the packed earth. It is a path I could walk in my sleep. I know its every dip and turn, every stone that might trip an unwary foot. I pass the silent silhouette of the old groundskeeper, already tending to the gardens. We exchange a simple, silent nod. In this world, before the world wakes, words are unnecessary. The dairy is a low stone building, always cooler than the air outside, a sanctuary from the eventual heat of the day. As I swing open the heavy wooden door, the familiar smells wash over me, a comforting perfume, sweet hay, the warm, living scent of the cows, and the sharp, clean smell of the lye soap I use to scrub the pails until they shine like silver. The herd shifts in their stalls, their great bodies moving with a slow, ponderous grace. A few of them turn their heads, their large, dark, liquid eyes blinking slowly in the golden light of the lantern I've just lit. "Good morning, Daisy," I murmur to the oldest cow, her coat a patchwork of soft brown and creamy white. I run my hand along her warm, solid flank, feeling the steady, powerful beat of the life within her. She lets out a low, contented moo, a deep rumble that I feel in my chest. She is a comforting presence, a constant in my ever-turning world. I greet Buttercup next, younger and more skittish, offering her a piece of an apple I'd saved from my supper. My life is a circle of these small, quiet rituals, the walk in the dark, the silent nod to the groundskeeper, the greeting to Daisy, the apple for Buttercup. They are the anchors that hold my days in place. The milking itself is a meditation. I settle onto my low wooden stool, its 3 legs worn smooth and dark by years of use. I lean my cheek against Daisy's warm side, feeling the steady rhythm of her breath, a living metronome. Then my hands, though rough and calloused from a lifetime of labor, know the work intimately. They move with a gentle, practiced efficiency. The sound begins as a sharp, metallic tink. Tink, tink, as the first streams of warm milk strike the bottom of the empty pail. It is a lonely, hopeful sound in the quiet of the morning, a promise of sustenance. Then, as the pail begins to fill, the sound softens, becoming a frothy, gentle hiss, a sound of abundance, of purpose. My mind empties. There is only the rhythm, the warmth, the quiet sounds of the dairy. As the sun finally rises, casting long, golden fingers across the pasture, my main work is done. The rest of the day is spent in other rhythms, the rhythmic thump, thump, thump of the churn as I make butter, the vigorous scrubbing of the pails, and the long walk to carry the fresh milk up to the kitchens of the great house. The house is another universe, a universe of polished floors that reflect the light like dark water, of high, vaulted ceilings where sound gets lost, of hushed voices and people who move with a stiff, formal purpose I cannot comprehend. The air here smells not of hay and earth, but of beeswax, roasting meat, and the faint, floral scent of the lady's perfume. The head cook, a large, perpetually flustered woman named Martha, takes the pails from me with a familiar grunt, her eyes already on the 100 tasks of the day. "Put them by the larder, Clara, and be quick about it. His lordship wants his morning meal, and it is here, in the chaotic, simmering warmth of the kitchen, amidst the clatter of pots and the shouting of orders, that I see them. The two people who exist at the opposite ends of this universe, drawn together by a force I cannot yet name, a current running unseen beneath the surface of this well-ordered world. I see Alara, the kitchen maid, on her knees by the great hearth, scrubbing a massive copper pot with a brush made of stiff bristles. Her face is smudged with soot, her knuckles red and raw from the harsh soap and cold water. She is a whisper in a loud room, a creature of the shadows, her eyes always cast downwards as if searching for something she has lost on the flagstones. She works without complaint, a small, determined shadow in the background of this grand life, easily overlooked, easily forgotten. Then he enters. Thomas, the master's son. He strides into the kitchen, a whirlwind of fine fabrics and polished leather, complaining loudly about a smudge on his riding gloves. He moves as if he owns the very air, as if the rest of us are merely furniture, obstacles in his path. He has the easy, careless arrogance of a boy who has never been denied anything, whose hands have never known a callous. He stops in the middle of the room, near the hearth, and demands a glass of cool water. Martha, busy with a tray of pastries, barks at Alara. "The young master is thirsty, girl. Move yourself." Alara rises, her movements quick and silent, like a startled field mouse. She scurries to the clay jug in the corner, her head still bowed. She fills a pewter cup and brings it to him. As she hands him the glass, their fingers brush. It is a fleeting touch, an accident that lasts no longer than a heartbeat. But in that moment, the entire kitchen, with all its noise and chaos, seems to fall completely silent to me. I see the look that passes between them, a jolt, a flash of something in his eyes, not the usual empty command, but something raw, vulnerable, and intensely focused. It is a look that strips away the master's son and reveals only the man, and I see a deep, painful blush that floods Alara's face, a wave of color so intense it seems to burn. She quickly curtsies, her eyes fixed on the floor, and retreats back to the shadows of the hearth, as if seeking refuge. Thomas watches her go, his jaw tight. He stands there for a moment too long, forgetting the water in his hand, before he seems to remember himself, turns sharply, and leaves without a word. I tell myself it is nothing, a moment of fancy, the rich young master toying with the poor servant girl for his own amusement. It is a story as old as these very stones. I dismiss it. I must. It is safer that way. I return to my own world, the world of the dairy and the fields, and the comforting, uncomplicated company of the cows. The afternoon passes in a golden, drowsy haze. I lead the herd to the far pasture, a vast sea of green grass and wildflowers under the endless blue sky. I find my favorite spot beneath the shade of a great, ancient oak tree, its branches a twisted, comforting canopy above me. I watch the cows graze, their movements slow and peaceful, their contentment a quiet lesson. I watch the clouds drift, great white ships sailing on an endless ocean, going nowhere and everywhere at once. There is a safety in this predictability, a deep comfort in knowing that tomorrow will be much the same as today. I do not long for anything more. I have everything I need right here, in the warmth of the sun and the whisper of the wind, or so I tell myself. As evening approaches, the sun begins its slow, magnificent descent, setting the western sky ablaze with violent, beautiful strokes of orange, pink, and deep, bruised purple. My work for the day is done. It is time to return to my small cottage at the edge of the estate. I could take the main, muddy path, the one trod by 100 other boots, the one that leads directly home. But tonight, for a reason I cannot explain, I feel a strange pull towards the quieter route, the one that runs alongside the old stone wall that separates the wild, open fields from the perfectly manicured gardens of the manor. The wall is a line drawn between two worlds, my world and theirs. The wild roses are in full, riotous bloom there. Their scent is heavy and sweet on the warm evening air. I think I might pick a few. A small, stolen touch of beauty to brighten my simple room. The air is still, The world is bathed in the soft, forgiving light of dusk. The crickets have begun their nightly chorus, a steady, hypnotic rhythm that is the heartbeat of the countryside. It is a peaceful evening, the kind of evening that feels pregnant with possibility, where the veil between worlds feels thin, the kind of evening where secrets are born. That is when I hear the voices. They are not loud. They are low, urgent whispers, carried on the gentle breeze from the other side of the wall. They are a tear in the fabric of the evening's peace. I stop, my hand hovering over a perfect, deep red rose, its petals as soft as velvet. It is not my place to listen. The secrets of the great house are a dangerous currency, one I cannot afford to trade in. My first instinct, the instinct of a servant, of a girl who knows her place, is to turn and leave, to forget the flowers, to pretend I heard nothing. But I recognize the voices, and my feet feel as though they have taken root in the soft, dark earth. It is him, Thomas, his voice, once so full of command, now a desperate low murmur, and with him, Alara. Her voice, a thread of sound, fragile and trembling like a captured bird. I do not know what compels me. Perhaps it was the memory of that look in the kitchen, a loneliness of my own perhaps, a lifetime of quiet observation, of watching the world from the sidelines. I find a place where the shadows are deepest, where the rose bush grows thickest, and its thorns can hide me. I press myself flat against the old wall. The stone is cool and rough against my cheek. I can smell the damp, ancient moss that grows in its crevices. I find a small chink between the stones, a place where a bit of mortar has fallen away over the long years, and I hold my breath, and I listen. We cannot wait any longer, Thomas is saying, his voice a torrent of hushed, frantic words. I have thought of nothing else for weeks, for months. I see you every day, and it is a kind of torture. The ship I told you of, Alara, the one called the Sea Serpent. Its captain is a man who owes my family a favor. I have now called in. It leaves from the harbor in 2 days' time, on the morning tide. If we are not on it, if we miss this chance, there will not be another. My father, he spoke with me this evening. He plans to betroth me to the Duke's daughter before the first snows fall. Our time has run out. This is our only moment. Her voice is so quiet, so full of fear, I must strain to hear it. It is the sound of a leaf falling onto still water. But my sister, she is young. She is unwell. She depends on the few pennies I am able to send her. And my duties here? Martha will say I have stolen something to explain my disappearance. They will send men after us, Thomas. They will hunt us down. There is no world where we can be together. There is, he insists, and I hear the rustle of fabric, the soft jingle of coin. I imagine him pressing a small, heavy pouch into her hand, a gesture both desperate and hopeful. I have sold my riding horse, the black one, my father's prize. I sold it to a trader in the village. He asked no questions. It is enough, Alara. It is enough for passage for 2 to the New World, to a place called Virginia, and enough to live on for months until I find work. I am strong. I can labor. I can build us a house. I will send for your sister. I swear it on my very soul, as soon as we are settled. I will not let her suffer. I will not let you suffer. He pauses, and in the silence I can sense him moving closer to her, his larger shadow falling over hers. Alara, please, look at me. The silence that follows is immense, a living, breathing thing. It feels as though the entire world has stopped. The moon, the stars, The very stones I am leaning against are all holding their breath, waiting. My own simple, predictable life feels a universe away. I am no longer just a milkmaid. I am a witness, standing on the edge of their precipice, peering into an abyss of terrifying, beautiful possibility. I think of the risks, the sheer, foolish, breathtaking madness of it. A boy of his station, a boy who has never lifted anything heavier than a silver spoon, giving up a life of unimaginable wealth and privilege. A girl of her station, a girl with nothing to her name but her quiet dignity and her sister, risking being branded a thief, a runaway, a harlot. They will be hunted, they will be poor, they will have nothing and no one but each other in a strange new land across an endless ocean. It is a fool's plan. It is a child's dream. It cannot possibly succeed. I am afraid, she finally whispers, and the two words are filled with an entire universe of terror. The terror of the unknown, the terror of starvation, the terror of disappointing her family, the terror of being caught and shamed. And then he says the words that will echo in my mind for years to come, the words that change everything, not just for them, but for me, the silent listener in the dark. Then be afraid with me, he replies, his voice no longer pleading, but full of a tenderness so fierce, so absolute. It feels like a physical thing in the air, a warmth that reaches even me. We can be afraid together, my love. That is the only courage we need. At least we will be free. I hear a soft sound then, not quite a sob, not quite a laugh, a quiet gasp of air, the sound of a final barrier breaking within her, of a heart surrendering not to him, but to hope itself. I do not need to see their embrace to feel its desperate, trembling strength. I do not need to see their kiss to know that a vow has been made, more sacred and binding than any vow ever spoken in a church before 100 witnesses. This is a promise, sealed in shadow and moonlight, a promise to leap into the void together. I stay frozen for a long time after their whispers cease. I hear the soft crunch of leaves as they part, presumably in opposite directions, back to the lives they are about to leave behind forever. I wait until the only sound is the chirping of the crickets, a sound that suddenly seems much louder, much more significant than before. I push myself away from the wall, my heart a wild, painful, beautiful thing in my chest. The wildflowers are forgotten. I turn and walk, then I find myself running, back towards my cottage, my feet barely touching the ground. My mind is a storm, a whirlwind of their words, their fears, their impossible courage. I do not feel the thrill of knowing a secret. I feel the heavy, aching, terrifying weight of it, a responsibility I did not ask for. I reach my small cottage. The wooden door creaks as I open it, the sound loud and lonely in the night's silence. Inside, it is dark. It smells of wood smoke from the cold hearth, of dried herbs hanging from the rafters, and of my own solitary existence. My small cot is in the corner, my rough wool blanket neatly folded upon it. My life is here, contained within these 4 simple walls. It is safe. It is known. I will wake up tomorrow and I will milk the cows. The day after, I will do the same. Nothing will have changed for me. And yet, tonight, everything has changed. I lie down on my bed, still in my work clothes, and I stare at the single, perfect square of moonlight on my wooden floor. It seems brighter tonight, somehow, sharper. I replay their words in my mind over and over. Be afraid with me. A part of me, the practical, sensible part that knows the hardness of the world, screams that they are fools. They will be caught. The master's rage will be terrible. they will be shamed and broken. But another part of me, a part I did not know existed, a small, dormant seed in the back of my soul, feels a sharp, painful pang of something I can only describe as envy. Not envy for their love. I have seen love before, the simple, practical pairings in the village, born of need and proximity. No, this is not that. This is envy for their breathtaking, terrifying courage. The courage to look at the life that has been assigned to them, a life of gilded comfort for him, a life of quiet servitude for her, and say, with one voice, no, we choose something else. The courage to leap from a high cliff into a dark sea, trusting only in the arms of the person beside them to be their wings. My life is a straight, flat, dusty road. I can see its end from where I stand. Their life, now, is an open ocean. It holds storms and monsters and the threat of drowning, yes. But it also holds the possibility of new lands, of a new sun, of a life they have chosen for themselves, a life they will build with their own hands. The familiar sounds of the night, usually so comforting, now seem to be filled with questions. The crickets chirp their insistent, rhythmic song, and I hear in it a countdown. 2 more days, 2 more nights. The wind whispers through the thatch of my roof, and I imagine it is the sound of the ocean, calling to them a world away. The moon watches over my small cottage, a silent, silver witness. And I know it is watching over them too, in their separate, lonely beds in the great house. Tonight, the moon and I are the only keepers of their secret. My thoughts begin to slow, the sharp edges of my envy and fear softening into a kind of melancholic wonder. I think of Ilara's chapped hands and wonder what it will feel like for her to touch the salt spray of the ocean for the first time. I think of Thomas's soft, uncalloused hands and wonder how they will fare when faced with the hard labor of building a new life. I wonder if their courage will be enough. I hope it is. I pray to a God I am not sure I believe in, that it will be enough. My mind begins to drift. The solid walls of my cottage seem to dissolve. My thoughts become less like words and more like images. I see a ship with white, billowing sails, waiting in a harbor I have never seen. I see it sailing towards a rising sun, towards a new city, a city built of whispers and promises, a city where one can be afraid. Together, a new life, a new breath, free, a soft whisper, sailing away, a secret promise sealed by the moon and carried in the heart of the one who listened. A reminder that the greatest acts of courage are often the quietest ones, whispered in the dark when no one else is near. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the heart of the country. I hope this tale has calmed your thoughts and brought you a sense of peace. May your night be restful and your dreams be full of gentle possibilities. Sleep well. A secret promise, sealed by the moon and carried in the heart of the one who listened. From the open fields and the scent of wild roses, our final journey tonight takes us to a place of even deeper silence, a place of cold stone, whispered prayers, and flickering candlelight. We enter a village church after the last parishioner has gone home to witness a different kind of secret, one that is not hidden from the world, but within the hearts of 2 people who thought their true feelings were invisible. Let us become the final witness of this moonlit night. My world is one of ritual and silence. It is a world defined by the scent of melting beeswax and the faint, sweet smell of old incense that has seeped into the very stones of this church over centuries. I am Finian, an acolyte, and my life is a quiet rhythm of service to God and to the profound silence his house keeps when the worshippers have all gone home. The evening mass has ended. I watch the last of the villagers depart, their hushed conversations and the scuff of their boots on the stone floor fading until the great oak door groaned shut, its iron latch falling into place with a heavy, final thud. And then, the great silence descends. It is a different silence than that of the fields. It is a heavy, sacred silence, filled with the echoes of 1,000 prayers, 1,000 sorrows, 1,000 hopes left behind. My duties are simple, and I perform them with a practiced, meditative grace. First, I walk the pews, collecting the prayer books left behind. The leather covers are worn smooth and soft by the touch of countless hands. I can feel the history in them. I stack them neatly on a wooden cart, the sound of leather on leather, a soft, satisfying whisper in the vast emptiness. Next, the floors. My broom, made of bundled twigs, makes a gentle swoosh, swoosh, against the flagstones. It is a sound that measures the space, sweeping away the dust of the day. In the last rays of sunlight filtering through the high, stained glass windows, the dust motes dance like tiny, golden spirits, each one a prayer ascending. I watch them, mesmerized for a moment. The window depicts Saint Michael, his sword raised, his face a mosaic of brilliant blue and fiery red. In this light, he seems almost alive, a silent guardian watching over my solitary work. Finally, the candles. This is my last and most solemn duty. I move from one prayer stand to the next, each one holding a galaxy of small, flickering flames. Each flame represents a hope, a fear, a plea sent up into the ether. My task is to bring their vigil to a close. I use a long brass snuffer. With a gentle touch, I lower the small cup over each wick. There is a soft hiss, a tiny curl of white smoke rises, and one by one, the lights go out. With each extinguished flame, the shadows in the church grow deeper, longer, reclaiming the corners of the sanctuary. I leave the candles on the main altar for last. I am moving through the choir, my footsteps the only sound, when I pause. Something feels different tonight, a presence. I had thought myself alone, but the silence feels occupied. I step out from behind a large stone pillar, and my heart gives a small, sharp jolt. I am not alone. In the very front pew, the one reserved for the Lord of the Manor, 2 figures are kneeling. Even in the dim, flickering light from the altar, I recognize them immediately. It is Lord and Lady Beaumont. This is more than unusual. It is unheard of. They are the patrons of our church. Their family name is carved into the foundation stone beside the main door. They attend Mass every Sunday, as is their duty. They sit in this very pew, perfectly straight, perfectly silent, a flawless portrait of nobility and piety. But they always leave first. They never stay for private prayer. And in all my years of service, I have never, ever seen them kneel so close together. He is a man carved from oak and iron. Lord Alastair is known throughout the lands for his stern face, his hard bargains, and a temper that can be as cold and unforgiving as a winter wind. He rules his lands with an iron fist, and, it is whispered, rules his house with the same detached authority. She, Lady Alara, is like a figure from a different world. She is known for her quiet, almost sorrowful beauty, and a grace so profound it seems fragile. She drifts through her life like a ghost in fine silks, her eyes holding a sadness that the finest jewels cannot hide. The village gossips say Their marriage was an arrangement of land and titles, a joining of two great houses, not two hearts. I have seen them in public 100 times. I have never seen them touch, not once. My first instinct is to retreat, to melt back into the shadows and leave them to whatever private, noble prayer they have come here for. This is a moment not meant for my eyes. I begin to back away, my worn shoes making no sound on the ancient stone. But then I see it. A movement, so small it is almost imperceptible. Her shoulders, beneath the fine dark wool of her cloak, begin to shake. It is not a violent movement. It is a silent, racking tremor, a grief so profound it seems to have no sound, a storm contained entirely within her own body. Lord Beaumont does not move for a long, long moment. He remains as still and unyielding as the stone saints that flank the altar. He stares straight ahead, his jaw set. A part of me, the cynical part that has heard the village gossip, thinks he will ignore it, that this too is part of their silent, cold arrangement, that her grief is her own to bear. But then he shifts. It is a slow, deliberate movement. He turns not his whole body, but just his powerful shoulder, creating a shield, a bulwark, around her smaller, trembling frame. And he raises his large hand. It is a hand I have seen sign contracts, hold the reins of a powerful war horse, and gesture dismissively to his servants. Now, I see that same hand move with a hesitation, a tenderness I would not have believed possible. He places it, not on her back in a formal, stiff gesture of comfort, but on the back of her head, his broad fingers gently, almost clumsily, sinking into the intricate, perfect arrangement of her dark hair. He does not pat her. He does not stroke her hair. He just holds her. He holds the back of her head, anchoring her, steadying her against the silent storm of her sorrow. He lets her cry into the rough, expensive wool of his coat, his own body a steadfast wall against her pain. He does not speak. He does not offer empty words of comfort. He simply holds. And in the flickering light of the single candle I had left burning on the altar, I see a glint of moisture on his own weathered, unyielding cheek. It is a single tear. It escapes his stern eye and carves a silent, glistening path through the lines etched on his face by years of command and authority. It is the most shocking thing I have ever seen. And then I remember. Of course. How could I have forgotten? Tonight is the anniversary. The anniversary of their only son, young Edward, who died in a foolish, meaningless border skirmish 5 years ago. A boy of my own age. In the public square, at the market, during Sunday Mass, they are Lord and Lady Beaumont. Two separate, powerful pillars of the community, bound by duty, not affection. But here, in the cold, empty, silent church, in the presence of only God and an unseen, insignificant boy, they are not a lord and a lady. They are simply two parents. Two parents sharing an unbearable, unending, and profoundly private grief. They are a single, heartbroken soul, cleaved in two by loss. And now, in this moment, trying to piece itself back together. The strict lines I had drawn in my mind, between duty and love, between a public facade and a private sorrow, between the cold lord and the sad lady, all of it melts away in that one, simple, world-shattering gesture. He, the hard, unyielding lord, was her anchor. She, the fragile, beautiful lady, was his heart. Their intimacy was not the fiery passion I had witnessed in the stable, or the hopeful promise I had heard over the stone wall. This was something else entirely. A bond forged not in joy, but in the deepest crucible of shared pain. I did not extinguish the last candle that night. I could not. To do so would feel like a desecration. I left it to burn, a small, defiant flame in the vast darkness, a vigil for the boy they had lost, and for the profound, silent, secret love I had been privileged enough to witness. I backed away, my own footsteps swallowed by the great, sacred silence of the church. I left them to their grief, to their private sacrament. I slipped out the heavy side door and into the cool night air. The sky was a vast, deep velvet, scattered with a million diamond-sharp stars. The world outside felt so large, so alive, so indifferent to the small, immense tragedy unfolding within the stone walls behind me. My walk back to my small cell in the rectory was a slow, contemplative journey. Every familiar sight seemed new. The gnarled branches of the ancient yew tree in the churchyard looked like arms reaching up in prayer. The sound of my own breathing seemed loud in the stillness. That night, lying on my hard, narrow cot, sleep was a distant country. My mind, usually soothed by the familiar Latin of evening prayers, was a whirlwind. I replayed the scene over and over, the trembling of her shoulders, the stillness of his back, the impossible tenderness of his hand, the single, silent tear. I had always thought of love in the grand terms I read about in the holy books, the love of God for man, the love of a martyr for his faith. And I had heard the villagers talk of love in simple terms, a good marriage, a strong son, a full harvest. But this silent, shared agony, I realized it was a form of love too, perhaps the strongest form of all. A love that doesn't need words, a love that shows itself not in kisses and declarations, but in the simple, profound act of holding someone up when they can no longer stand on their own. I thought about all the other secrets these ancient church walls must hold, the silent prayers of farmers for rain, the desperate pleas of mothers for a sick child, the hidden sorrows and secret joys of 100 generations. I realized the church was not just a house for God. It was a vessel for all the tangled, beautiful, painful threads of human life. My understanding of my own faith began to shift. It was no longer about grand pronouncements from the pulpit. It was about this quiet, desperate, holy moment of connection between two suffering souls. The silence in my small room was absolute now. The world outside had faded away. My thoughts, once so turbulent, began to slow. They drifted from the image of the two figures kneeling in the dark to the single, defiant flame of the candle I had left for them. A small light in a vast darkness, a single point of warmth. In the cold, a shared breath, a silent prayer, a silence that holds everything, a gentle peace. Some stories are not whispered, they are simply felt. They exist in the silence between heartbeats, in the shared grief that binds two souls together. A reminder that the deepest intimacy is often found not in joy, but in our shared vulnerability. Thank you for keeping vigil with us tonight. I hope this tale has brought a sense of peace to your own quiet corners. May your night be blessed with tranquility, and may your rest be deep and restorative. Sleep well.